How come it is that people in Genesis live so many years? There's something going on in that story that is bizarre. If you read through Genesis, you would realize that people live 900 plus, 800, 700, 600, 500, 400, 300, 200, and 100 plus years on a decline. Very interesting. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. I'm going to show you something that just blew my mind. Take a look at something and see if you observe a pattern. I'll tell you right now what I've done is I've taken a downloaded copy of the King James Version of the Bible. This is one that is descended from the Torah, not from the Septuagint. So it is a Jewish lineage. You can tell that by day 7. 7 is said 3 times. The one from the Septuagint said God finished on day 6, and then he rested on day 7. 7 is said twice, and day 6 is said once. So you'll see a variation in those right off the bat if you're using your own Bible. In this case, it doesn't matter. These numbers are going to stay consistent. And that downloaded version of the Bible, what I did is I pretended like I had it memorized, and I just went and started searching for groups of numbers. The 900s, the 800s, the 700s, and 1,000. Look what shows up right here. Okay, I'll describe to you what this is. I used the navigation search here, and I searched for these numbers showing up. And 1,000 shows up twice. 900 shows up 7 times. 800, 7, 700, 2. You can see what I've done here is I've just taken those and the amount of times they occur in Genesis and put them on a separate form here. Now what I did is I lined them all up together on this second part down here. All I did was you can see they're the same numbers down here that are up here. I've just taken and lined up all the 2, 3, etc. 1,000 and 700 both show up 2 times. 600 and 500 are both used 3 times. 300 and 200 are both used 6 times. 900 and 800 are both used 7 times. 400 is used 8 times, and 100. In this version, that means 100. They're using 100, which is the same as 100. That it shows up 21 times. So the 8 and the 21 here, there's something a little bit different going on. But you see up here, there's twice 2 shows up. Twice 3 is used. Twice 6 is repeat. They're actually repeated that many times. And 7 times 900 and 800 are both repeated. Do you see that pattern? What I'm going to suggest is that there's something there that if you start analyzing it, it'll actually get deeper than that right there. I'm trying to find ways of showing what I'm seeing, the patterns, and pulling this stuff together in a way that if we had this memorized, we would know this right here. But since we don't have it memorized, we can't know this. So we have to, you see, I'm using the computer to search. They're really thought of as common numbers. I've got a few examples downloaded here. I'm just going to share from other channels, and I'm going to leave it kind of, up so you can see that it's from a YouTube channel and where it's from. I'll give credit where it's due. But this is just people today or, within the last few years. I didn't pick anybody really huge or anything. These are just a couple of small, benign descriptions of how people are trying to explain the years.
These people lived a long time. Adam, it says, lived 930 years. Seth lived 912 years. Enosh lived 905 years. What's going on? There have been various attempts to explain this. Some people say that before the flood, there was a canopy over the earth and that protected people from the sun's rays and allowed longer life. Others say that the effects of spiritual death took some time to kick in after Adam and Eve, so lifespans gradually decreased over time. Others say these lifespans are merely symbolic. They point to ancient records of Sumerian kings who claim to have lived for tens of thousands of years. According to this view, these are hyperbole, statements of greatness.
Okay, right there we see 3 different possible explanations. One of them is that it was, kind of protected. There was the dome protected over the earth, or that at one point in time people just lived that long and it's decayed. There's been changes. Or that one of them that somehow it was something that, honestly, that would be some sort of a metaphorical thing that comes from earlier teachings. He's looking at it as why did the people live that long? As nothing else. The interpretation here that they're trying to make is, why did the human being live that many years? That's what they're focused on.
The book of Genesis reports that certain people lived for hundreds of years. The most famous of these is Methuselah, who's said to have lived 969 years. Now, that's very different from the ordinary human experience that all of us are used to. And so how do we make sense out of these long lifespans reported in the book of Genesis? Well, let's ask some questions to help clarify things. First of all, who were these people?
I actually skipped this question and jumped right to the one we're looking for here.
Did people actually live that long? What stands out immediately in Genesis chapter 5 is how long Seth's descendants lived, most of them over 900 years. Now, this is so different from the ordinary human experience as recorded in human history that scholars have tried to figure out if there's a way to reinterpret these numbers to make sense out of them. For example, some have suggested that units of time have changed their meaning. But there's really no reconstruction of these references that yields a consistently convincing result. It appears from the text itself that these lifespans are meant to be taken literally.
All right, what he just said right there was that scholars have tried to redefine these terms to make more sense out of them, thinking people don't live that long. There must be something else going on, and then trying to, I've heard people say, well, this many years actually is this many months. And if you calculate it that way, there's a lot of effort put into that isn't there. But he admitted also right away that there's nothing out there that corroborates that idea. And so he went right to the idea then that it is therefore must be true numbers. Are they?
It appears from the text itself that these lifespans are meant to be taken literally. And then after the flood, the Bible gives us considerably shorter lifespans for human life. And so that really sets up our next question, and that is, what accounts for these long lives? There are plenty of theories. One suggestion is that the Earth's climate changed after the flood. And this suggestion posits that before the flood, the Earth was surrounded by a canopy of water vapor, and this continual cloud cover helped to shield the Earth from the harmful effects of cosmic radiation, leading to longer life. And this would have then deteriorated after the flood was over, so people were exposed to the cosmic radiation and its effect upon the gene pool. And another suggestion is that just simply from the time that people were first created by God and the gene pool was perfect, the DNA was perfect, that over successive generations that the gene pool deteriorated over time, as it will, and that led people to be more and more susceptible to disease and aging over time.
I'll keep those short. The basic idea here is that I'm trying to demonstrate is that there is effort being put towards trying to explain those long years. Here's one more.
And why the long lifespans? We're not told. Certainly that would have allowed for a lot of enormous populations. Some writers think there was up to 7 billion people living before the flood. There's no way of proving that. Some think that all of this genealogy is sort of compressed. In other words, it's not exact. There's enough vagueness in the Hebrew when it talks about being father that might refer to many others, and you've got them having sons and daughters. So it might not be exact, but it certainly looks.
We've got might be, some think, some people think, could be. It certainly looks like. Are we on firm footing here?
Like a fairly straightforward lineage from Adam to Noah, to me at least, and to many others, I might add. And if you add it all up, it comes to 1,652 years.
All right, the addition is correct. And if you're treating them as literal numbers, that's about all you can do with them. However, we experiment. I've looked at those and thought there's something else going on, and I saw patterns and I realized they were repeating a certain amount of times, but I had to put that down and show people. You have to look at that on your own or see it in your own mind for that to unfold. That there's a numbering sequence going on that actually starts, I contend, on day 7 of creation, where day 7 is said 3 times. There's a 7-3 beginning right there that begins to sequence through here. In fact, here, let's go ahead and look at this again. Throughout the book of Genesis, 1,000 is repeated twice. 700 is repeated twice. 600 is repeated 3 times. 500 is repeated 3 times. 300, 6 times. 200, 6 times. 907, 807 times. And then we have our 408 times with something different going on, and our 100 at 21 times with something different happening. But do you see our pairs of 2, 3, 6, 7s up above? Do you see a repeating sequence that is going on that I'm going to contend will link up a lot of things? I'm going to stop this video, though, because they just get too big and people drop off. I just wanted to show that to see. I can show my wife this and she'll glaze over in 30 seconds and say, I don't even know what you're talking about. So you have to have the mind to see certain things and be interested in certain things, that there is something that is different going on in there. And for me, what I'm observing is really due to experimentation and digging into it, and then coming to the realization that the reason we cannot see this is because we don't have it memorized, when back then, when they didn't read and write, they did have it memorized and they could see this. So we've lost access to it. If you look at it and you see patterns in there, and I can show you other patterns that go in there. I want to say something else, if you can comprehend this, that when we're reading the stories, and we've got them in the Bible, we're reading them really in a linear fashion, start to finish. If you had it memorized, all of the component parts would be in your mind at once. It would be something in your mind that is in a three-dimensional view, of a three-dimensional awareness, as opposed to linearly waiting for the next story to come along. We could gather up all of these things that are spread all over the place and reassemble them in our minds in this sequence right here. They just take the sequence, scatter them, poof, you lose them. But if you had them memorized, you could pull them together. I am not a gamer, but I think that this is a good analogy because I've watched modern games and people play them. And I think I do the same thing, except I do it in my imagination. I just don't do it with the game. But basically what you're doing is imagine going through it, and it's like it's unfamiliar to you. You continue to go through it again and again and again and again. And after a while, boy, you know what's ahead. You know what else to do. You know what to grab along the way. You have built the memory to play it all out and to know what's going on so much more in the end. And that's kind of how these unfold. Let's just do a quick one right here. I'm going to start and just walk this pattern through. I can do this repeatedly. This is just one. Okay, it starts right here from my analysis. The last day of the first creation story, where seventh day is said 3 times. Seventh is what we're concerned with, not the day itself, not the story. We're concerned with the idea that 7 is said 3 times. I've gradually worked to the idea of playing around with these and treating the numbers as analogs themselves. And what these 2 numbers represent all of a sudden, the 7 and the 3, represent a parallel. There's 2 creation stories. If you put them side by side, the 7 day and the 5 rivers, when you get to the end, it is before first sin. This is a pure state for a human. This is before first sin. I'll just leave it right there. Naked, unashamed, in the Garden of Eden. Day 7, said 3 times. That's our tie point that we want to build from. Now, how do I find cross-reference numbers? Now, for the sake of getting the video done, I'm going to jump around. I can assure you there is incredible amounts that are into this. What I'm looking at right here is as Abraham and God are getting ready to talk about the destruction of Sodom. And Abraham drew near him and began asking him if he should destroy the righteous with the wicked. And this peradventure here, suppose if, archaic, yeah, that's just the version I have. What if there are 50 righteous within the city? Will you not save it for the 50 righteous that are within? And it goes through this kind of a numbering sequence down here. But if you look, you will notice that righteous is said 7 times. So I call that a link from here into this numbering system. That takes that 7, and then it puts it right here. And all of the numbers that are being created within here are part of a pool of analogs. I'm going to grab one right here that's just 30 right here. Do you see that one of them down here at the bottom? Suppose there are 30. I will not do it if there are 30. So I'm going to say, we can grab all of these, honestly, but in this case, let's just do one. Because the righteous is said 7 times, that all of the numbers that are repeated at least twice down here with it are also analogs as well. And that's just what you eventually come to as you're experimenting, because we will find somewhere else that it's doing something similar. Okay, so quite simply, and I won't put up all the red numbers. You can just take a look and count them for yourself if you'd like to. What we see here is we get up to the analog farm where Adam, well, what I call it's a lineage, actually. This is where everybody's trying to explain these ages right here. And what I'm going to contend is that as I look through here and I find where 30 appears elsewhere, I find that 100, that appears 21 times. That's on the list of numbers that we collected. 900 appears with 30, and 900, like righteous, appears 7 times. So 900 appears 7 times, so every number that goes with it becomes an analog, just in the same way as the Sodom collection farm. If we continue to look down, there's a 900 that's said 7 times, and there's an 800 that is said 7 times. So there are different link-ups between other numbers that are oddball numbers. You would look at that and say, how do you explain 900 years? I would explain it by saying it's a clue that it's not real. It's not 900 years. It's 900 said 7 times, pointing to a 30, which then goes on to mean something else. What would it mean? Many things. Put your ideas below. Start with the book of Luke. How old was Jesus when he started his ministry? Yeah, right there. 30. There's something in there. I would want to know what it is. Questions, comments? If you have anything you want me to look at or questions about stuff, it gets much deeper than what I'm showing here. I'll post a link to a video below to the kind of the 7-3 connection, the grid connection, and why it works. Hope this one was fun, though. To me, it really works like all of the spiritual material. If you hold on to a lesson and you're trying to interpret it in the physical world, you're going to struggle. You're going to come up with all kinds of different things, which is exactly what we see. You're trying to explain something that really can't be explained in any logical way. So we have to make up reasons for it to have happened that really, at the end of the day, would be supernatural or something somehow. Or if you try to create it natural, it's like, well, there's no evidence of that. No, there were no cataclysmic changes like that. When you're trying to interpret it as a literal thing, like the one guy says, there's no choice but to take them literally. Wow, okay, then that's not true. There are other ways to look at them. You just have to step back from it. If you're looking for the template that is the inward healing path, there's a different path, and something else emerges from here. But it is so hidden, you can't see it. You have to do something like what I just did right here in order to go, oh, okay, it's there. I can kind of see that in my head, but not that deep. Not until I go in and start searching do I see more things. I see repeats, and I see how it's growing. So it is a network, but it's a puzzle that needs to be looked at in a certain way that when you do, what emerges is a incredible consistency in interpretation. But you got to enter the narrow gate with it. That means it goes into your memories. It's an inward healing path. However, my contention is, and you have to go through here and do some real deep analysis in Genesis in the story, knowing what the story is to begin with and how to set it all up, and knowing that these numbers then become analogous representations of that beginning point again. They're going to repeat every time there is a pureness, every time that has to happen. Only it'll never sound like it because they're building so many variations of really what are numbers that are going to be used to represent that same point. So, boom, it disappears from our mind. We don't see it. We don't know how to look at it, and we don't have it memorized, so we don't recognize patterns that would normally make us go, why does this happen over here? We don't see it happening. We don't. So we don't question why it's happening. It's there, but you have to look for it to find it. Okay, that's it for this video. I hope it was fun and interesting. I'm having fun with this stuff, decoding it and cracking it. It is an inward healing path hidden in a way that is so far away from us. It's It's a struggle to get there. But if you lived your life doing this, you'd love it. All right. See you in the next video.